Very excited to speak today with Annie Wu, who is the Global Head of Diversity and Inclusion with H&M. So Annie, it's a great pleasure to speak today. And let's really start at the beginning. Why do you think that diversity and inclusion is such an important topic for any company, basically around the world?
Thank you so much for having me here today. I think that this topic, especially when we're talking about coming from a global company and having a global presence, is so important today, given what we've seen this past year with COVID-19 running through the entire world. We've seen protests around democracy happening in certain parts of the world, and of course, the Black Lives Matter movements happening, that we know that this topic is ever to really talk about, discuss, and see how we can make an impact.
Absolutely. I think it's been quite a turbulent year in many respects, as you just said. And do you think also from your experience, and how far does it help companies to bounce back better or faster after a crisis, whether it's COVID or any other crisis? But what's your take on how does diversity in the workforce actually help a company?
Well, I think you will see that research shows that diversity is such a really big important part of what makes innovative, creative, and exciting teams that can then help bring those ideas to light and to help any company, regardless of industry, really seek what is the core issues and then think of innovative and creative decisions on how to solve them.
So you're saying there's also this business case for diversity and inclusion that I think by now I absolutely agree has numbers to it. And I think the big question is, well, if we all know how important it is, then what are concrete ways, and we're looking to learn from you here, is what are concrete ways of how companies can actually work on the topic, and how can we become more diverse and inclusive as a large global corporate?
Well, there are many layers to this, of course. I would say that, ultimately talking more intentionally about inclusion and diversity is all about change management. Because this isn't, just a big corporate issue. It's a human issue. And when you talk about changing how we think and how we behave and how we talk about these topics, it hits us, right, personally all the time about what inclusion and diversity means. So one, it is for sure change management, but another is that there has to be a clear commitment from the leadership team in the organization if you're talking about how to implement it through a big corporation, because people, especially in these very uncertain times, really look for direction from the top. And if it's not something that is embedded in the company goals, or if it's not spoken about in kind of engagement activities through the organization, then it's just words on paper and no action will actually happen. Because, like I mentioned before, it is about change management. And so that that has to be embedded in people's thinking before it can be actually actioned upon. So I think both things, just understanding how hard change can be, and then really visible commitment from the leadership, usually at least tries to get it done.
And yeah, I absolutely understand. And can you maybe add, just, is there anything, any initiative or anything, any specific action that you did in H&M, where you say, after you had that commitment and after you created the visibility around the topic, that you did that had a bigger impact across the organization? Is there anything where you say that was maybe particularly successful after having that initial buy-in and the continuous showcasing as well.
Yeah, I think one thing that we've done really well is the awareness training when it comes to inclusion and diversity. I mean, I think how this topic is so broad, right? And it means so many things depending on where you are in the world that you have to almost kind of level set everyone on speaking the same language. And so we were able to do that with awareness training that we put together more than 2 years ago at this point to really try and get everyone across this organization on the same page. I mean, we are present in over 70 different markets with 180,000 employees. So to really get people to understand what diversity meant for us and what inclusion also means on how to use that diversity within, and to really just understand that they had a safe psychological space in order to talk about these issues because these are human issues and we need to be mindful that not everyone is comfortable talking about this. So I think is setting that framework and setting that scene for everyone is super important. And then we can, then move forward to the next step and see what it is that we can do, depending again on what country or what region we're in.
Thanks for sharing that. And you said it yourself, it's such a complex topic, obviously. So I'm pretty sure it's also bound to create certain failure when trying to approach it. And
Yeah.
there's always a lot to learn from failure as well. So can I just ask, and whether that's from, inside H&M, but I'm sure you're also exchanging a lot with others around that topic. Is there something we can learn from something that hasn't worked?
Um, I mean, like you said, it is basically trial and error as we go through this. I think what we noticed is how important data is. I think we underestimated maybe how important it was to be able to compile and aggregate data in order to really see where are you starting from. Because you need to kind of understand your base before you move towards or know where and what direction to move towards. So that I think for everyone kind of to be able to do their homework, um, we should have pushed harder for that in the beginning. At the same time, I would say parallel to the awareness raising. But, you know, at the point we felt like because we wanted everyone to really speak the same language and be on the same page, we focus on the awareness raising first. But I think if I were to do it all over again, having a really big push also to gather and aggregate some data at the same time would have really helped kind of pinpoint certain things that we could have done even faster.
Super important advice. I'm sure that there are
Mm,
a lot of people can take that into consideration when they get started. Thanks a lot for sharing that so openly. And as as the field is so wide, I'd love to focus us a little bit on women in the big picture of diversity and inclusion. And of course, women are super important for H&M as be part of your teams and employees, but of course also the customers and also in your supply chains as factory workers and others. So I'd love to hear a bit from you how you specifically approach the topic of women empowerment and also where you see the key sort of challenges for women entrepreneurs, for women workers, and how you approach that topic.
yeah. So, like you already just mentioned, we at the group are 76% women in our employees, but also our supply chain employs around 1.6 million workers, and 80% of them are women. And as you also noted, that many of our customers are also women of all ages. So we feel that great responsibility around gender equality because we will always try to actively seek opportunities to empower women through our business as an employer, through our production, our products, our marketing, communication, and of course in the communities that we are engaged in. Um, I mean, we are really proud of the job opportunities that we create for women, both internally and within our supply chain. And for our supply chain, we do have specific gender equality strategies to make sure that we secure the basics like non discrimination and non harassment. We try to address enablers for women, like maternity rights. And also, we drive lots of different initiatives to try and empower women, like digital pay slips, leadership, and representation training, for example. But we are looking into the future all the time to see what it is that we can do to empower women just a little bit more. I mean, as you know, during these COVID times, as we see now, there's been so much research now done that we can see that women are the most impacted when it comes to this pandemic. And we really want to make sure that we are one of the driving forces out there to try and turn that around as much as we can. Um, it's been super clear during this year that creating job opportunities to support livelihood and contribute to the economy is going to be the most important thing that we can do. And giving uh, emphasis on gender equality is what I think we can do as a company to help achieve that as much as possible.
And do you think, or have you already started? Because I'm hearing a lot about the importance of creating new kinds of partnerships or collaborations, because no company or no organizations by themselves can really create that massive impact that's needed. And as you just said, now even more than before COVID. Is there anything ongoing, or maybe is there also lack of action in that direction? What's your feeling right now in terms of coalition building or partnering up?
Mm. Well, one example that I can share with you is our collaboration with Call to Action, that is being sponsored by the ILO. And so we, along with 92 other brands, are actually a part of that coalition. We have been working with them since the beginning of this pandemic. And I think for the supply chain part, that's what we've been contributing with. I think what has been lacking, honestly, is the more retail employee in our brick and mortar stores, along with other brands. But that has been what hasn't been maybe at the forefront, because a lot of uh, European countries, of course, have a social network to support retail workers. But then there are definitely some countries like the US and Mexico that do not. And I think that's something that we may want to think about.
Yeah, absolutely understandable. And thanks
Mm.
already so much for your time and for sharing all this insight. Do you have any sort of key message or final words that you'd want to share with anybody who's taking care of diversity and inclusion or is responsible for that field in their company?
Yeah, I think really that we're all in this together, shown us more than ever that the social issues are not going away. And if anything, they're actually just going to be more heightened when we hopefully get through this pandemic and then we see, the outcome that comes from this. I think diversity is one aspect, but inclusion is definitely very, very much top of mind for myself and for the H&M group, because we will see, I think, more disparity coming in between social economic classes, especially given probably the worldwide recession that will happen after this. So let's, just all band together as much as possible, use our size for the better, and see what kind of coalitions and change we can do as big corporations, and also working with nonprofits and NGOs like yourself.